Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, we're going to be talking about medical astrology and Mars. I'm going to be talking about the body parts that it corresponds with in astrology and how it can affect us health-wise, physically, etc. Now, looking at this now, first off, as far as the body parts that Mars corresponds with astrologically. Well, Mars could be connected with the face, the muscles, the head, the skull, um, the blood, vitality, one's energy level. Somebody that has Mars in Cancer, as an example, might not always have an abundance of energy unless there are other factors in the chart, some contraindicators like a Leo ascendant, for example. Mars, of course, is in its fall in Cancer. I had a prominent family member that has her Mars at 29 degrees Cancer, and it almost, 29 degrees and at Mars and being in Cancer, it seemed like a lot of times she had really a lot of energy, but at other times it would be just the opposite. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, she had it in being Mars in Cancer in its fall. It's not exactly a certified either placement that would have a certified of energy, but having it 29 degrees, that's like sometimes could indicate an overabundance of energy. So obviously a complicated placement. But 29 degrees in astrology can also, I see it as it could be, it's either a lot, it's either an overabundance or minuscule amount, but sometimes I think it can be some vacillation in that energy department. But anyway, Mars can also be associated with cuts, abrasions, inflammations, just general physical injuries, headaches, rashes, fever, and another thing, I believe also insect bites it can be associated with as well. And you're also talking about if Mars is afflicted natally, this could manifest in debilitations and illnesses that are associated with the planet and even the sign that it may reside in. Now, uh, it's also, for example, street ball legend icon Grayson Brucey, aka the Professor. He has Mars in Scorpio in his natal chart conjunct Saturn, and also that Mars in Scorpio makes a loose inconjunct to his Gemini Sun. And in one video, it showed that he had some injury to the groin area, and of course that could be associated with Scorpio. Mars in Scorpio by itself may manifest in some issues where you could have some injuries to the groin area. There might be some propensity or susceptibility to those kind of injuries, and you have Saturn conjunct it could add some difficulties, despondency connected with it. Then on top of it, the fact that he has that loose inconjunct to the Sun, remember that the Sun is associated with the physical body, so that could even increase that proclivity even more to have some injury and associated with what I was just describing. Now, and also, too, recently, I don't know how many of you have heard of Grayson Boucher, aka the Professor. He's called the Professor, I guess, because he takes people to school on the basketball court. He puts a lot of shrewd moves on his opposing defenders. Recently, according to one video in the title, it stated that he succumbed to a career-ending injury, and at that time he had transit Uranus make an opposition to his natal Mars, and apparently it's some ankle or Achilles injury. So when you have transits that are hitting they're making an adverse aspect to your Mars, it could be issues with that transiting planet, because Mars just in general can be about physical physical issues, and Uranus is associated with can be connected with ankles. I would say Achilles as well. Remember that Uranus does rule the zodiac sign Aquarius. But anyway, another thing is that when we're talking about transits that involve Mars, that of course could figure and factor in one's health and issues with the physical body. Now, Some of you may have heard of Jessica Sacco, who was brutally murdered. The date I got was March 22nd, 2012. She had her body dismembered. It was really just a ruthless crime that was committed against her. At that time, she had transit Mars in Virgo, conjunct her natal sun. Now, the thing about it is, Mars, of course, could be about incisions. Virgo is about dissection. She had her physical body basically, sadly, and not to be, not to sound cold or overly graphic, but I mean basically dissect. It was basically, cut and cut you to basically cut into different parts. And the thing is, sadly, you look at the sun and being the physical body, and at this time, and in her natal chart, she had Mars in Taurus, uh, not far from the algal position degree, and it wouldn't surprise me if the head had been severed as well, because the algal position in astrology can be associated with beheadings, and I mean, generally speaking, I mean, it's more about people becoming fixated or obsessed or over one's head as opposed to literally losing them. But in some cases, sadly, I think it could manifest in the actual literal, as far as having the head beheaded. And it wouldn't surprise me if her head actually had been decapitated, sadly, in the process. And it would make sense for as far as the criminal aspect of it. They were trying to somehow conceal her identity and make it harder for the detectives to determine who she was. Now, another thing too is that if you have progressions in one's chart, of course, can manifest progressions that would involve the planet Mars in one's chart could manifest in health and physical related issues, debilitations. Now, let's say, for example, somebody has progressed Mars in their 12th house, and it makes an adverse aspect to the Uranus in that progressed chart. Now, keep in mind, I mean, Mars in the 12th house by itself can indicate very depleted or dissipated energy level. But another thing it could indicate, remember that when we're talking about medical astrology, I'm not just talking about, I mean, physical ailments. Yeah, I'm emphasizing and accentuating physical ones, but it could also talk about issues that could be of a mental issue, mental disorders as well. Now, somebody in their progress chart, say they have Mars in that 12th house of mental illness, and say, again, it makes an adverse aspect to the erratic and sporadic planet known as Uranus. In some cases, it could manifest as some kind of mental disorder, like, for example, like intermittent explosive disorder, where you have these sporadic outbursts of anger and acrimonious energy, because you're talking about Mars, the planet associated with anger, the 12th house of mental illness, and then making the adverse aspect to Uranus. Which of course is Uranus is very erratic and sporadic and unpredictable energy. Now, another thing too, let's say, for example, that somebody has this in synastry. Mars could play a role in physical, it could be some physical related issues as well. Now, let's say, for example, in synastry, there is a South Node conjunct Mars aspect between two people. Now, the South Node in astrology, of course, could be associated with what we're going away from. It could be really about less as opposed to more. And when you're talking about, and it could be draining energy when you're talking about it in a synastry conjunction aspect. The South Node is conjunct another's Mars in synastry. The South Node person may have a propensity to drain or deplete the energy and the drive of the Mars person. And the thing about this is, in some case, now another case, let's say somebody's Chiron is on one's Mars. Now, the Mars again can be associated with just physical issues in general, and Chiron, of course, the asteroid, could be associated with wounds, sometimes not just emotional wounds, but physical suffering in some cases. So it could be, if somebody has Chiron on another person's Mars, that Chiron person maybe causing, maybe doing something to cause anger issues with that Mars person, or maybe some, it could be some issues like, as far as maybe actually the connection is actually giving them the headaches, and say if it's in Taurus, it could be maybe persistent ones, or it could be causing, in some cases, physical issues, like if it's in Taurus, something with the throat or the neck areas, anything that would be in that example Taurus related. But at the same time, remember that Chiron is also the wounded healer, so it could actually be the Chiron person might actually help alleviate issues connected with the Mars person, such as matters like with abrasions or cuts. Might be a physician of that Mars person, as an example, and helping that person deal with injuries or even some anger issues in some cases. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.